Hey everybody, Dustin DePirac here, calling the Standy Graham. We're talking Bowling Green, IU Bowling Green. This is, I don't know that anybody really looked at this one and really circled it as a really big deal at the beginning of the year, but it's a really big deal. This game matters a lot, obviously, considering recent events, especially with the IU Navy game. Going into this one 1-1, Indiana probably went into the season figuring, or Indiana fans went into the season figuring that they need maybe 3, maybe 4 non-conference wins to put themselves in pretty good position for a bowl game. And being 1-1, they're in a little bit of a hole, and they get a Bowling Green team that is no joke at all, right, Andy?
Probably the best team in the MAC. It's either I think them or Northern Illinois or Ball State, but they are very potent. I DVR'd the game they played with Kent State over the weekend, and suffice to say that this will constitute a major challenge, and it's a big enough game that Kevin Wilson is breaking out the chrome candy-striped helmets. That should tell you how he views it, and it really literally is a situation where that's sending a little bit of a message. He knows he likes his kids love those helmets, and I think the initial plan was to save him for the Missouri game, but this is a big deal. Indiana needs to regain a little mojo, and it isn't going to be easy because I think that Indiana's like a 2-point favorite in this game, and that's because of home field advantage, and I'm not sure. I wouldn't take Bowling Green to the points because this is a Bowling Green team that is extremely potent on both sides of the ball. They've got 21 starters back when you count the kicker and punter, 19 starters if you don't count them. And that's from an 8-4 team. And so far this year, they have whacked the opposition, and the opposition has been pretty good clubs. In Tulsa
and Kent State, they haven't had any joke teams.
It was 35-7 over Tulsa, I think it was. And
34, but yeah.
34, and then Tulsa went out and beat Colorado State the following week. Kent State is probably had its best team ever last year, and is a proud
and lost their coach, but
stalwart defensive team. And Kent State just ran all over them in the second half of that game. Bowling Green ran all over them in the second half of that game, and really blitzed them and came after them defensively and shut them down. I believe the stat is for the second half of the first 2 games the Falcons have played, they've outscored the opposition 45-7. They're a veteran team. They've got an offensive line that averages over 300 pounds per guy, and this is one of those MAC teams. Every year there are some of the teams in the MAC that could probably take out about half of the Big Ten teams, and this is one of them. And they're it's like any other really good MAC team. They've got a lot of guys who are sort of overlooked overachiever types from the Midwest. A lot of guys from Ohio, and they like nothing better than to go play a Big Ten team and knock them off. They'll come in with a chip on their shoulder. And frankly, Indiana ought to come in with a chip on its shoulder too. After last week.
Yeah, no, it needs to. Let's break some of that down. Bowling Green comes off, defensively, they lost last year the MAC Defensive Player of the Year, defensive tackle Chris Jones, but they bring back just about everybody else. 2 All-MAC first-team picks, 4 All-MAC players overall. That team only gave up 16.8 points a game last year. That's 10th in Division I in scoring defense. They were, I think, 6th in the league in all of, not Division I, the FBS 1A, whatever you want to call it, in scoring, 10th in scoring defense, 6th in total defense. So they were really solid across the board. Offensively, they weren't a great team last year, and they haven't been a balanced team really over the last couple of years. They seem to be now. Dave Clawson's a pass guy. He was a head coach at Richmond actually when I covered James Madison, kind of, sort of. But he likes to throw the ball. They've been throwing the ball a lot, but this year they've got balance. Quarterback Matt Johnson threw for 357 last week. He actually stepped up and beat out a 3-year starter in Matt Shields, who had thrown for like 7,800 yards.
Yeah, he had.
Shields in 3 years.
Had 35 starts and had thrown 50 touchdown passes and thrown for 7,800 yards and got beat out.
Yeah,
which should tell you how good Matt Johnson is. And so, no, I mean these are good players. They got wideouts that look like Indiana's wideouts, like big 6'4" guys who are like NFL prospect type guys, some of them. And look, these are players. A lot of these guys that go to the good MAC teams are guys that got looks from Big Ten schools, but for whatever reason, maybe the Big Ten team signed a different defensive end, or maybe this guy was a little bit undersized.
Yeah, a couple inches, 6'2", 6'3", whatever.
Look, for the best MAC teams, these guys are similar caliber players than what you'll see at Indiana and some of the Big Ten schools. So, fans out there, casual fans, I mean, Indiana's in one of those positions, kind of like the Navy game, actually, where it's like a no-win proposition. If Indiana
they're
wins,
playing a much better team than anybody realizes they're playing.
And if Indiana wins, it's a heck of a win. But that's not how people are going to see it. A lot of people are going to say, that's a Big Ten school playing at home against a MAC team. They're going to shrug their shoulders and say, so what? If they lose, it'll be, apoplectic Armageddon.
Right.
So it's a tough situation for Indiana, and frankly, this is a Bowling Green team that's as good as a lot of opponents Indiana's going to see this year, including some Big Ten teams.
But I guess in fairness to Indiana fans, they got to beat somebody.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I mean, like, obviously, again, Bowling Green is really good. Bowling Green appears to be better than the Ball State teams that have beaten Indiana the last 2 years.
That's probably a fair statement.
I think the Indiana fan perspective, in some cases, it's just not knowing that much about MAC teams or whatever, or just looking at it and say, okay, you should beat a MAC team. You're Indiana, or you're a Big Ten team. You have to, but. Indiana's in a position where they came into the season and just the talk was, okay, they're going to be surprising. Mm-hmm. I've been saying 6-6 the entire time. I think a lot of I didn't think that was all that crazy. I don't think that was all that far out on a limb. A lot of people have said even better. And you do have to look at it and say, well, if you're going to get these wins, these are the teams you have to beat.
That's
right. I mean, they're as beatable as
most of about anybody else that they'll see.
They'll see. Yeah, I mean, they've got to get a win sometime.
I mean, it's kind of like with Navy. Yeah. None of us.
That was another situation. It was like, are they better?
We didn't know what to expect. It was their first game, and it turns out I think Navy's a lot better than they were last year, and they were pretty good last year. Mm-hmm. And that's not to say that Indiana's defense didn't have a horrible performance, because it did. But I think Navy probably is a better team. At least with Bowling Green, we kind of know what's coming. I mean, we've seen these guys play, and it's like, I could really play, So it shouldn't be that much of a surprise. But no, I don't blame Indiana fans for expecting victories. And frankly, if this team's going to do what it needed to do this year, which was to make clear signs of progress and to get some W's, then this is a huge game. It's a big game, and it's, as I said, the crowd's probably they're not going to have 47,000 people there like they did last
close.
week. And so it's not going to necessarily have the trappings of a big game or the buzz of a big game, but it's a big game.
Yeah, and that I think is really the test, is that they have to recognize, I think, the importance of this. I mean, I think that's part of the chrome helmet move,
absolutely,
which is weird. I mean, I think you can play this in a lot of different directions. It's just odd generally when you're playing with emotions through the use of helmets, whatever. But that's obviously a message that's trying to be sent, is that this is a big game, and that this is one you can't just say, okay, well, it's just Bowling Green or it's just a MAC team. It's massive for Indiana. I mean, they're already at a critical turning point. That they can't. I don't think they can afford to be 1-2 after this one. Right after that, you got two big home games in Missouri and Penn State.
Right.
Don't want to go into that with zero momentum or negative momentum.
Right. No, I mean, it's a big game, and look, I was the guy that said 7-5 at the start of the year, but I said all along that I thought this was a kind of Indiana team, still pretty young team, that was fairly talented, and certainly offensively, and had some young talent on defense, that would probably lose a couple of games people don't expect them to lose, and maybe win a couple of games that people don't expect them to win. Well, we've had one in the former category already, and if they have two of those in a row, and once again,
the margin for error isn't big enough to have more of those.
They're expected to beat Bowling Green in the wider public mind, but that might not be. That's not really a realistic.
That might be a better team.
This is a real challenge this weekend. If Indiana wins, it's a good win. It's a legit win. I mean, this is a team that's getting votes in the AP poll, the top 25 poll. I mean, they're somewhere around the top 35 in terms of vote getters. Like they're 36, actually.
Something like that. Yeah.
But anyway, it's not like this is a MAC team that really won't be able to be competitive.
They're there.
Extremely competitive.
They're there.
And they'll be hard to handle. And if Indiana wins, it'll be a good win. And if Indiana loses, it's going to be it's not fatal. I'm not one of those people that'll say, "Oh, the season will be over."
Well, they still have to play it out.
But they, there's going to be some teams. There's going to be some games where maybe Indiana knocks somebody off that people don't expect.
6-6 just becomes a lot harder.
It does.
7-5 becomes a lot harder.
7-5.
A winning record. I mean, it's never over. Basically, when you're Indiana, I mean, shoot. the bucket game still matters regardless. I mean, even if they lose from now until Purdue,
and I
Purdue
think
still
Indiana
matters.
team's gonna
But
get better as the
yeah,
season goes along.
which is tough because November looks rough.
That's right. But I do think we'll see. But no, this game looms large.
Yeah, a lot. So we're at 10 minutes, so I'm not going to push it any further. I had other stuff I wanted to say. I'm thinking Nate Sudfeld starts. I'm just saying. I know. Real quick, Kevin Wilson, you may have noticed, likes to play around with the media, likes particularly to play around with the media when it comes to quarterback questions. So anyone who's under this impression, Trey's still going to play some. Trey's not going away. But everyone's sort of hand-wringing about, is Nate really not going to start? Nate's going to start.
I would think so, and I do think this.
He's not going to tell us that.
It's one of those things where if a quarterback gets hot, or given the circumstances in a given game. I mean, last week, Trey didn't get much of a chance. I mean, and the first couple of drives weren't necessarily.
And I don't think he was going to get going if they did.
But frankly, they get down 17-0, and you're going to have to be throwing the ball, and
yeah, you got to come back.
Nate was better suited to that. But look, after throwing that initial pick, which was a bad play by the way, should have been a touchdown. If he reads that right and lets Stephen Houston continue into the end zone, it's going to be wide open. It should have been a touchdown. However, on the heels of that, Sudfeld leads 5 straight touchdown drives, and I think if nothing else, that by itself merits a start.
Yeah, it's 11 minutes. We're going to call it. Thanks as always, everybody. We'll see you tomorrow.